The first thing I remember is the sound of forks pausing midair as my sister pulled her boyfriend toward me, her smile already mocking before she spoke. Christmas lights flickered across her face as she said it. This is the failure of our family. My parents laughed, as if humiliating me was part of the holiday ritual. I didn't move or speak, but he did. He looked at them, then at me, and his voice cut through the room. Interesting, because she's not the one who's done. That was the moment. Everything quietly shifted. My name is Serenity Hale. For as long as I can remember, I have lived at the edge of every room in my own home. Even as a child, I learned to move silently, carry plates without clattering, stand where the light didn't reach, and leave space for the people my family actually noticed. Most nights, dinner felt like a stage play where everyone else had lines. Laya always sat in the center, under the chandelier, her plate filled first. Mine was whatever remained. Cold vegetables, a broken piece of bread, the smallest portion of chicken. I didn't complain. Complaining only brought Diana's voice, soft but sharp. Don't be greedy, Serenity. She said it so often it became the rhythm of the house. Richard barely looked my way unless something needed fixing. A faucet, a late bill, a chore Laya didn't want to do. I was valued for tasks, not attention. He called it building character, though Laya never required the same lessons. She received new clothes, clubs, opportunities. I got lectures about being realistic and grateful. I remember a winter afternoon when Laya forgot a school project, a poster Diana helped her make. When the teacher called, Richard didn't ask Laya why. He turned to me, irritation in his voice. Why didn't you remind your sister? My role was never to live my own life. It was to keep hers from collapsing. Laya never looked guilty. In our home, guilt was assigned, not earned. As we grew older, my presence became increasingly invisible. My achievements, small but hard-won, disappeared in the shadow of her performances. I remember earning a spot in an art program downtown. Heart racing, I brought home the acceptance letter, hoping this time they'd see me. Diana read it in silence, then placed it neatly on the counter. Leia has dance today, she said. We can't be driving all over town. Your mother would want you to be practical. That letter went into the trash that night. Laya's dance costumes arrived 2 days later. Money that could have funded my classes, savings, or future quietly disappeared into her needs. Shoes, competition fees, weekend trips. Asking where it went only drew Richard's sigh. We invest where it matters most. I knew exactly what he meant. No one called it favoritism. They called it support, doing what was best. Family. I believed them because believing softened the cruelty. Still, I had small rebellions, drawing late in the laundry room studio, saving scraps of my allowance in envelopes hidden behind detergent bottles, creating a quiet world where I didn't have to earn a seat at the table. Even then, part of me thought things might change. If I worked hard, stayed quiet and steady, maybe I'd be invited into the warmth reserved for her. It took a long time to realize that warmth was never meant for me. I learned my place quietly, like an eraser removing a name, a glance shifting, a door closing without sound. One evening, alone in the office, the city humming distantly outside, Laya's voice carried from the break room, rehearsed and careless. My sister doesn't have a real career. She just floats around. Adrian only keeps her around out of pity. I didn't respond. By the time I walked past, the conversation had moved on, as if it had never happened. The real blow came the next morning. Weeks of work in my concept file were gone from the shared folder. In its place was a polished version under Yela's initials. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking, patient and indifferent. A soft knock broke the stillness. The intern entered, shoulders curled, whispering, I saw her download your file yesterday. She deleted the original. I nodded. Not at him, but at the pattern, the cycle so familiar it felt like blood. The access logs confirmed it. Her username, timestamp, deletion, upload, clean, intentional. At the afternoon meeting, Laya told the story again. Serenity dropped out of everything when we were younger. She always crumbles under pressure. People chuckled politely. Adrian didn't. His gaze lingered on me briefly, reading the space I occupied. I didn't correct her, defend myself, or question her entitlement to rewrite my life. When the meeting ended, she brushed past with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I smiled back, then left the office. I walked through the city, past cars and people, holiday lights blinking against building windows. Nothing felt connected. I kept walking until the cold burned, making everything sharp again. I arrived at a nearby co-working space, keyed the door, and entered. The room was empty. White light on tables, the hum of a printer, faint coffee grounds. The silence steadied me. I opened my laptop and reviewed the logs. Timestamps marking small betrayals, Laya deleting and uploading my work, emails claiming she had corrected flaws. I copied everything into a folder labeled Documents, then gathered payments, bills, transfers, screenshots, and emails showing her manipulating the system. She had built her own version of me, justifying the theft of my work and my place. It wasn't new, but now I had proof. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. A text from my aunt, a photo of old paperwork she found while cleaning, payments my mother had set aside for me, savings stolen in my teen years. "Your mother wanted you to have these," she said. I stared at the screen, then added the files to the folder. By 1 a.m., I was at the back corner of the space, looking out at the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. Snow had started falling, fine flakes drifting under street lamps, silent and steady. I watched them until my breath slowed, until my pulse steadied. Then I opened a new spreadsheet, a simple list of everything I had built at the agency. Clients I brought in, campaigns I directed, projects Laya claimed, folders I created, budgets I balanced, hours I logged. The list was longer than I expected. Most people imagine revenge as hot and fiery. Mine was cold, methodical, a sequence of administrative actions, typed, saved, filed. The next morning, before anyone arrived, I went to the old studio above the laundromat on the edge of Aurora, where I built my first freelance jobs. The machines downstairs rumbled, shaking the floorboards. The air smelled of detergent and warm metal. I opened the storage drawer. My old drives, wrapped in a scarf from years ago, were still there. I plugged them in. Folders bloomed on the screen. Early sketches, concept drafts, original styles that became the agency's signature tone. All mine. All the seeds Laya grew her reputation from. I took what I needed, not out of spite, but because it was mine to take. Back at the office, Adrian was in the conference room, staring at his laptop like he was outrunning a headache. He looked up as I entered. "Sit," he said softly. I did. He turned the screen toward me. "My file, the one Laya claimed." He tapped the corner. "Your metadata is still inside." "Of course," I said. She changed the name, not the backbone. He opened the access logs next to my folder from the night before. "You pulled everything," he said. I nodded. "I didn't push you into this, did I?" "No." "And you're sure you want me involved?" I thought about silence, about what happens when you speak and no one listens, and what happens when you stay quiet and everyone assumes you'll keep swallowing the hurt. "Yes," I said. He studied me, not with pity, but with the kind of focus people use when assembling something delicate. Then he leaned back. "HR needs this. Legal needs this. And the board needs to know where the credit belongs." His voice was factual, administrative, clean. We spent the next 2 hours assembling the file. Every document, log, payment discrepancy, every moment where my work had been funneled into Laya's pipeline of praise, typed, printed, signed. Around noon, he slid the final packet across the table. "I'll handle the process," he said. "You don't have to deliver this." Part of me wanted to, not to confront her, explain, or win, but to stop being the silent witness to my own erasure. I rested my hand on the packet, steady and calm. "I won't fix what they've broken," I said. I arrived late on purpose. Christmas dinner was already underway when I stepped into my father's house. The air was thick with cinnamon-roasted meat and rehearsed laughter. Lights glowed warmly against the cold outside. Every year, this house tried to look like a home. I stood near the hallway, letting my coat drip melt water onto the tile. At first, they didn't notice me. Laya was spinning small stories for distant relatives, leaning into Adrian's shoulder as if she owned the room. His hand hovered, but didn't touch her back. When Richard finally saw me, he gestured to an empty chair at the far end of the table. "Sit. We've been waiting." His tone implied it was my fault for shifting the picture. Diana's eyes flicked over me, coat and shoes, hair as if checking for flaws. "Try not to make an entrance," she murmured. I didn't answer. I took my usual seat at the edge, half in shadow. Dinner resumed. Then Laya rose, pressing a hand to Adrian's arm as if inviting applause. "I want everyone to meet my sister," she said brightly. "This," she paused, smiling with practiced sweetness, "is the failure of our family." Richard laughed first. Diana nodded, almost proud of the line. Conversations fell into that familiar hush, the communal cruelty I had known since childhood. Adrian didn't laugh. He set his fork down softly. The room stilled. Christmas music faded into insignificance. He looked at Laya, then her parents, then slowly at me. Interesting, he said, low and steady. Because you're fired. The sentence landed without theatrics, simply placed in the center of the table. Laya blinked, confusion on her face. Effective immediately, he added. A few relatives shifted, unsure if they should pretend they hadn't heard. Adrian reached for his tablet and connected it to the living room TV. The screen brightened in cold light. The first file appeared, the original concept documents. My name embedded in the metadata, access logs, time-stamped and unedited. Laya's username glowed beside every action she thought untraceable. Download, delete, upload. Slide after slide documented her theft. Not just the file, but months of work, client strategies, design drafts. I didn't, she began. He didn't look at her. You did. When payment records appeared, transfers, budget approvals, signatures without clearance, Richard's face tightened, the illusion finally cracking. Diana opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no script. Adrian remained calm. The board received the full report this morning. HR processed the termination and the final note. He clicked once more. My portfolio appeared. The campaigns I led, projects I directed, clients I brought in, years of work hidden behind their narrative. Serenity, he said, eyes on me, stating, not asking, reality is the co-founder and principal strategist of our agency. She always has been. No applause, no vindication, just the air shifting as if the house itself had held its breath for years and finally exhaled. Laya stepped back from the screen like it burned her. You're choosing her over me? Adrian looked at her with quiet finality. I'm choosing the truth. No one looked at me directly. They couldn't. Their story had collapsed. I sat with hands folded, heart steady. For the first time, my silence didn't feel like surrender. It felt like authority. Seattle didn't feel like a fresh start immediately. Gray mornings, unfamiliar bus routes, rain tapping against a window that belonged to no version of my past. But distance has its mercy. It lets the mind breathe, unfurl, rethink a life's shape. My apartment was small, walls clean, a single plant near the window. The city was quieter than Aurora in winter. No rehearsed laughter, no curated family image, no roles to play, just rain tapping softly, steady. Adrian helped set up the new office, not out of obligation, but understanding the difference between survival and living. We kept it simple. Wood desk, soft chair, pinned sketches of campaigns that were truly mine. Work felt different. Not easier, but safer. No one was trying to take it. I didn't cut my family off. I stopped orbiting them. Whatever consequences they faced, audits, questions from relatives, fractured stories, happened without me. Silence can be cruel, but sometimes it's the only language people understand. A year later, on Christmas Eve, I cooked dinner with coworkers who had quietly become friends. We packed extra meals and walked them to a nearby shelter. The cold woke me, not froze me. Sitting at my own small table afterward, I placed the best portion on my plate. Crispy, warm, perfectly chosen. No one told me I didn't deserve it. No one measured my worth against another's appetite. The moment was quiet, almost nothing, but it felt like a life folding into itself, whole and unbent. Mine. I used to think survival meant staying quiet until someone finally saw me. Now I understand silence differently. It is an emptiness. It's a door I choose to open or close, a room no one enters unless I allow it. I stopped asking for a family that only applauded failures. Once I stepped away, their noise never followed. Wherever this story finds you, may you feel the steadiness of walking toward a life that answers back.